Well, I'm a little confused about exactly what we're currently debating. Because I think we tend to get down to these narrow questions that in a sense don't get at the core issues. The very first question I thought about Pakistan is the one that should be the starting point. The gentleman said that when we went in and killed bin Laden, that we drove U.S. Pakistan. Was this like a 30-second response?
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm happy to play by the rules. I just want to know what they are. But I think this is the heart of the American dilemma. We were told, a perfectly natural Washington assumption, that our killing bin Laden in Pakistan drove U.S.-Pakistan relations to a new low. To which my answer is, well, it should have. Because we should be furious. Now, and that's where this has got to start. You want to keep American troops in Afghanistan? You accept hot pursuit, you say no sanctuaries, you change the rules of engagement, you put the military in charge of the military side, you overhaul the State Department and AID so they get the job done, and you do it for real, and you do it intensely, and you tell the Pakistanis, help us or get out of the way, but don't complain if we kill people you're not willing to go after on your territory where you have been protecting them.
To weigh in on the sanctioning of the Iranian central bank is if you do that, for all practical purposes, it cuts off Iranian oil exports, 4 million barrels a day. The Europeans get a lot of that oil. They think their economy, if the price of gasoline skyrocketed, which it would be disastrous. That's why the pressure is on the U.S. not to impose those sanctions. What say you?
Well, I say the question you have to ask is perfect, because the fact is we ought to have a massive all sources energy program in the United States designed to once again create a surplus of energy here so we could say to the Europeans pretty cheerfully that all the various sources of oil we have in the United States, we could literally replace the Iranian oil. Now, that's how we won World War II. So I think you put your finger on you know, we all get sucked into these tactical discussions. We need a strategy of defeating and replacing the current Iranian regime with minimum use of force. We need a strategy, as Rick Santorum was saying, of being honest about radical Islam and designing a strategy to defeat it wherever it happens to exist. We need a strategy in Central Asia that recognizes that, frankly, if you're Pashtun, you don't care whether you're in Pakistan or Afghanistan because you have the same tribal relationships. So we need to be much more strategic and less tactical in our discussion. But if we were serious, we could break the Iranian regime, I think, within a year, starting, candidly, with cutting off the gasoline supply to Iran and then, frankly, sabotaging the only refinery they have.
But sanctions on the Iranian central bank now, is that a good idea or a bad idea?
I think it's a good idea if you're serious about stopping them having nuclear weapons. I mean, I think replacing the regime before they get a nuclear weapon without a war beats replacing the regime with a war, which beats allowing them to have a nuclear weapon. Those are your three choices.
Hi, my name is Allison Acosta Frazier, and I am the director of the Rowe Institute for Economic Policy Studies at the Heritage Foundation. And my question is this. The next president will have to make some very, very tough choices in order to solve the nation's spending and debt crisis. Would you be willing to say that our national security is so paramount that cuts to the defense budget are unacceptable?
Speaker Gingrich.
No. I helped found the Military Reform Caucus in 1981 at the beginning of the Reagan buildup because it's clear that there are some things you can do in defense that are less expensive. It's clear if it takes 15 to 20 years to build a weapon system at a time when Apple changes technology every 9 months, there's something profoundly wrong with the system. So I'm not going to tell you automatically I'm going to say yes. But let me make a deeper point, because there's a core thing that's wrong with this whole city. You said earlier that it would take too long to open up American oil. We defeated Nazi Germany, fascist Italy, and Imperial Japan in 3 years and 8 months because we thought we were serious. If we were serious, we would open up enough oil fields in the next year that the price of oil worldwide would collapse. Now, that's what we'd do if we were a serious country. If we were serious... One last thing. If we were serious, we would apply Strong America Now's model of Lean Six Sigma. We would save $500 billion a year by having an efficient, effective federal government. We would open up federal lands, increasing dramatically both jobs and the amount of revenue to the federal government. There are lots of things you can do if you decide to break out of the current mindless bureaucracy of this city and just get the job done, including, by the way, making the Millennium Challenge work and doing it in a way that we actually help people even more effectively at a much lower cost by having public-private partnerships.
I'm going to bring Governor Huntsman in, but very quickly, Mr. Speaker, would you, if you were President of the United States, bomb Iran's nuclear facilities to prevent it from becoming a nuclear power?
Only as a last recourse and only as a step towards replacing the regime. No bombing campaign which leaves the regime in charge is going to accomplish very much in the long run. You have to seriously talk about regime replacement, not just attacking them. But I will also say, this is, I guess, where I disagree with my good friend Ron Paul. If my choice was to collaborate with the Israelis on a conventional campaign or force them to use their nuclear weapons, it would be an extraordinarily dangerous world if, out of a sense of being abandoned, they went nuclear and used multiple nuclear weapons in Iran. That would be a future none of us would want to live through.
My name is Alex Brill, and I'm a research fellow in the economics department at the American Enterprise Institute. Even if the super committee hadn't failed, the savings that they would have proposed would have been a drop in the bucket relative to the $11 trillion deficit our country may face in the subsequent decade. In the decades after that, without entitlement reform, we'll borrow even more. To strengthen our economy, to strengthen our country, what entitlement reform proposals would you make to address our long-term structural deficit?
Good question. Speaker Gingrich.
It's a great question, and it raises the core issue of really large-scale change. Yesterday in Manchester, I outlined a Social Security reform plan based on Chile and based on Galveston, Texas. In Chile, people who now have the right to a personal Social Security savings account, for 30 years, the government of Chile has promised that if you don't have as much savings as you would get from Social Security, the government would make up the difference. In 30 years' time, they've paid $0. Even after 07 and 08 and 09, people slid from 3 times as much to 1.5 times as much. But they didn't go below the Social Security amount. The result is in Chile, for example, 72%, they have 72% of the GDP in savings. It has increased the economy, increased the growth of jobs, increased the amount of wealth, and it dramatically solves Social Security without a payment cut and without having to hurt anybody. So I think you can have a series of entitlement reforms that frankly make most of this problem go away without going through the kind of austerity and pain that this city likes.
Let's talk. Speaker Gingrich, let me let you broaden out this conversation. Back in the 80s, and you remember this well, I was covering you then, Ronald Reagan and you voted for legislation that had a pathway to citizenship for illegal immigrants. As you well remember, there were maybe 12 million, 10 million, 12 million illegal immigrants in the United States right now. Some called it amnesty then. They still call it amnesty now. What would you do if you were president of the United States with these millions of illegal immigrants, many of whom have been in this country for a long time?
Well, let me start and just say, I think that we ought to have an H-1 visa that goes with every graduate degree in math, science, and engineering so that people stay here. If you go about 5 blocks down the street, you'll see a statue of Einstein. Einstein came here as an immigrant. So let's be clear how much the United States has drawn upon the world to be richer, better, and more inclusive. I did vote for the Simpson-Mazzoli Act. Ronald Reagan, in his diary, says he signed it. And we're supposed to have 300,000 people get amnesty. There were 3 million. But he signed it because we were going to get 2 things in return. We were going to get control of the border, and we're going to get a guest worker program with employer enforcement. We got neither. So I think you've got to deal with this as a comprehensive approach that starts with controlling the border, as the governor said. I believe ultimately you have to find some system of, once you've put every piece in place, which includes a guest worker program, you need something like a World War II Selective Service Board that frankly reviews the people who are here. If you're here, if you've come here recently, you have no ties to this country, you ought to go home, period. If you've been here 25 years and you got 3 kids and 2 grandkids, you've been paying taxes and obeying the law, you belong to a local church, I don't think we're going to separate you from your family, uproot you forcefully, and kick you out. The Kriebel Foundation has a very good red card program that says you get to be legal, but you don't get a path to citizenship. And so there's a way to ultimately end up with a country where there's no more illegality, but you haven't automatically given amnesty to anyone. I mean, two things. First of all, in the DREAM Act, the one part that I like is the one which allows people who came here with their parents to join the U.S. military, which they could have done if they were back home, and if they serve honorably in the U.S. military, to acquire citizenship, which is something any foreigner can do. And I don't see any reason to punish somebody who came here at 3 years of age, but who wants to serve the United States of America. I specifically did not say we'd make the 11 million people legal. I do suggest if you go back to your district and you find people who've been here 25 years and have 2 generations of family and have been paying taxes and are in a local church, as somebody who believes strongly in family, you're going to have a hard time explaining why that particular subset is being broken up and forced to leave, given the fact that they've been law-abiding citizens for 25 years. I do not believe that the people of the United States are going to take people who've been here a quarter century, who have children and grandchildren, who are members of the community, who may have done something 25 years ago, separate them from their families, and expel them. I do believe if you've been here recently and you have no ties to the U.S., we should deport you. I do believe we should control the border. I do believe we should have very severe penalties for employers. But I'd urge all of you to look at the Kriebel Foundation plan. I don't see how the party that says it's the party of the family is going to adopt an immigration policy which destroys families that have been here a quarter century. And I'm prepared to take the heat for saying, let's be humane in enforcing the law without giving them citizenship, but by finding a way to create legality so that they are not separated from their families.
Governor Picker Gingrich.
I helped create the Hart-Rudman Commission with President Clinton, and they came back after 3 years and said the greatest threat to the United States was a weapon of mass destruction in an American city, probably from a terrorist. That was before 9/11. That's one of the 3 great threats. The second is an electromagnetic pulse attack, which would literally destroy the country's capacity to function. And the third, as Herman just said, is a cyber attack. All 3 of those are outside the current capacity of our system to deal with.
You can see from the pictures the candidates are shaking hands here in the hall. Dana just mentioned potentially a tough moment for Newt Gingrich. A strong debate performance overall, but did he get in trouble with conservatives with his answer on immigration, saying we're never going to expel the 10, 11 or so million illegal immigrants who are in the United States illegally? Gloria Borger standing by right now with the former Speaker of the House. Gloria, take it away.
Here I am with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. What do you think of the debate tonight and your own performance?
I thought it was terrific. I told Whoop Blitzer this was 2 in a row. He's done very, very well. And I thought it was a very balanced and a very well-managed debate. People got to really talk about ideas.
Let me ask you, one thing that came up at the end of the debate was the question of immigration. And you said that Americans want to be humane about immigration, that they essentially don't want to throw people out who've been in this country for a number of years.
I was drawing a distinction. There are lots of people who will go home. There are millions who will go home. They have no ties here. They have no roots. But there are also millions who are going to end up staying. And I think I can't imagine any serious person who can walk down the street, see somebody they've known for 20 years, and say, you're leaving your family, you're leaving your church, you're leaving the community you've been in now for 20 or 25 years, and we're kicking you out forcibly.
Well, let me tell you what Michelle Bachmann's campaign put out something immediately, which I got on my BlackBerry, which said that Newt Gingrich is opening the door to amnesty. What would your response to that be?
That is just totally inaccurate. What I've said is the Kriebel Foundation is a very good program for legalization without citizenship for people who've been here a long time. Now, I want to say go home to lots of people. I want to create a border that's controlled. I want a guest worker program outsourced to American Express or Visa or MasterCard. I want English as the official language of government. I'm willing to be tough, but I'm not willing to kid people. And I can't imagine any serious person here in this country who believes we're going to tear families apart that have been here 20 or 25 years.
Do you think the Republican Party has hurt itself with the Hispanic community because there might be that perception?
Sure, I think it makes it, it's not just the Hispanic community, but we have people who come to America from the whole planet. I think Governor Romney had it right tonight when he said, we favor immigration, we favor legal immigration. We actually would have more opportunity for people who are talented to stay, and it's frankly the Democratic Party and the labor unions who block that. So, I mean, it's a mixed bag, but I think it's important because I think somebody up here is going to be president. and I think that hopefully it's going to be me, but one of us is going to be. It's important for us to unify the country by having an honest conversation, not just a series of slogans.
And can you reflect on this? Here you are standing saying, I think it's going to be me. But last summer, if I recall, your campaign was imploding and your staff was leaving you, and here you are. And can you sort of reflect upon that for a minute about what's happened?
It's a little bit like Mark Twain. I think the reports of my death were premature, which is what he said when somebody wrote an obituary before he died. All of our core staff stayed. Callista and I had a team that we'd assembled over the years. They all stayed except for one person. The professional politicians all left because I don't run a traditional campaign. I run a very idea-oriented, very positive campaign.
What happened?
Now?
Yes. Why are you where you are?
I think that what's happened is people want substance. They want exactly the conversation you and I just had, exactly what this debate was like. They really know the country's in trouble, and they really want to have a serious person who is willing to talk through at a level of detail that's real and not just political slogans.
And one last question. Looking at the folks around you on the podium tonight, who is it going to come down to, you and who else, do you think?
Well, look, I always think that Governor Romney will be one of the two finalists. He has the money. He's run before. He's got a tremendous base in New Hampshire. So if it does come down to two people, I hope I'm one of the two, but I'm absolutely certain the other one will be Mitt Romney because he has 5 years of campaigning, and that gives you an enormous base.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for being with us after this debate. John?
I think the Patriot Act is unpatriotic because it undermines our liberty. I'm concerned, as everybody is, about the terrorist attack. Timothy McVeigh was a vicious terrorist. He was arrested. I have a personal belief that you never have to give up liberty for security. You can still provide security without sacrificing our Bill of Rights.
Do you want to respond, Mr. Speaker?
Yeah. Timothy McVeigh succeeded. That's the whole point. Timothy McVeigh killed a lot of Americans. I want a law that says, you try to take out an American city, we're going to stop you.